What's going on, y'all? KMBest here. Team Clash is in full swing, so we reached out to official limited time game mode correspondent Roram because so many of you loved the video that we did last time. What's going on,
Hello,
Roram?
everyone.
We beefed it.
Sorry,
we ruined
Cam.
it immediately. What's going on, dude? Just break down who you are, why you're the LTM guy, why I have decided to just sort of name you my official LTM correspondent, and what people can expect from you in terms of being a high-level player who plays the crap out of this stuff.
Well, thank you for having me, Cam. It's always a pleasure to be here and to talk about so many cool limited time game modes. My name is Roram, in case anyone didn't know that. I won Golden Gauntlet. Pretty much all you need to know, but
okay, all right, okay. Yes, no, the Roram is a unique entity in Marvel Snap because I think a lot of top players do not invest themselves very heavily in the game mode. You get a lot of 800 gold spenders among the cohort of top players. So what I think Roram is probably the best at is taking someone who has like a top player mindset and applying it to sort of optimizing these game modes for you, basically, the viewer. So what we're going to be talking about today, just very straightforward, because Team Clash has two competing deck building incentives. The first is you got to earn your tickets back so you can keep playing. And the second is you got to complete your missions. And that means that you want a good deck for every team. And so that is what this video is framed around.
Yeah, and we can start off with the Avengers. The Avengers is cool because they got nerfed pretty heavily in the last couple team clashes, and so we have to kind of experiment outside of just building a full Avengers deck, and we landed upon doing a zombies build. I got this actually mostly from bot, and I've added a few cards in here. Walking Torres interacts amazingly with Hawkeye, where it'll keep doing it double every single time, so it can end up winning its own lane, and then you win the other lane with the zombie giant man / horde. And so the Avengers is very straightforward, simple to play. Make sure you get your Torres down, wait for your Hawkeye with the Torres, and just farm 2 lanes with the Avengers.
So what is it that made this attractive compared to like a more straightforward type of Avengers deck? Why are we suddenly a zombie deck? What is it that changed this time around, and why did it lead us here?
I think what ended up changing was we saw nerfs to Hawkeye, Captain America, and I believe, was it Thor? Either way, we saw a bunch of nerfs to the main 6 cards, and they could no longer compete points-wise with the other decks, like Spider-Man or X-Men. And so we needed something that could go taller and more combo-esque, which Zombies does perfectly. The Zombie Scarlet Witch and the Zombie Giant Man are both Avengers. And so you can go really tall, and so that Lady Bullseye that you're probably seeing doesn't knock them down to minimal amounts of power.
And that Lady Bullseye notably good if you're relying on Iron Man specifically, because it effectively does its effect twice on Iron Man lanes, which is to say nothing of the fact that Lady Bullseye, archetypal all-star, has somehow managed to be in almost every game mode since she came out. Shout out to Lady Bullseye, but I think that does lead us to our next deck. The X-Men are coming off of the last Team Clash run feeling good. This was the best deck in the previous Team Clash, but there is a notable omission here that was caused by a ban list update. How much does this deck suffer for the lack of Mother Ascani in it? And for the sort of uninitiated, part of the original impetus for me getting Roram to do this stuff is he was the guy who made that one that ruined the last time that there was this game mode, where it was just like people doing Mother Ascani stuff on Lady Bullseye and Wong, and that was half the games I was playing. That was his fault. So this is sort of how you get on my channel, is you ruin a game mode. Now, is the game mode slightly less ruined now that we don't have Wong Ascani to do even more ridiculous things in the X-Men shell?
Yeah, I think the Ascani mom ban is wonderful. It really brought a lot of life back into this game mode, because at the end of the last Team Clash, it was just X-Men upon X-Men. And so you had X-Men farming every other deck, and then Magneto farming the X-Men deck. And so we took out the Ascani Mom because it got banned, and we added Prodigy, and this deck is just still very dominant. It has a lot of points, and whether that is the Lady Bullseye or the Prodigy on the Cyclops, and then win the other lane with the Wong Sage, there's just a lot of stats in this deck, and it almost always comes at the very end when you have a lot of energy. And so it's kind of hard to play around the X-Men deck because of how much energy it generates at the end of the game, and that it holds all those points in its hand waiting to play them at the end.
And this is also a deck that I think rotates very heavily around one card, though. That is Professor X. Professor X is the power spike of this deck. You are trying to make sure that you are getting 2 Professor X on turn 4, and then Professor X, even if it means you fill a lane later on, because you have so many ways to make that filled lane not necessarily as filled, by either back damaging that lane with Lady Bullseye, by gaining energy off of Sunspot, or by moving a Nightcrawler out of that lane. You are built pretty heavily to all in Professor X. He's your guy, and then everything else flows outward from that, correct?
Yeah, 100% correct. Professor X is really the keystone of this deck, and he holds it all together, making sure that the gameplay goes and functions perfectly well. You want to use your Jean Grey and your Jubilee to find that Professor X. The magic also can help facilitate that. Even if you're playing Professor X on 6 with a magic, it's worth it. You want to be able to play your Professor X to get that giant spike in energy.
Next up is definitely my least favorite deck in this game mode, and it's not necessarily related to it being good or bad. It's just that every time I try to play this deck, it feels alternately underpowered and busted. I have a theory that the people who play this game mode have only bad experiences with Thunderbolts, because when they play it, it doesn't work, and when their opponent plays it, it's insane. And that is
Yeah.
sort of the nature of a clog deck like this. Walk me through how to play a Thunderbolts list in a way that won't drive me nuts.
That's gonna be hard, KM.
Okay.
But it's a clog list. I like the clog version a lot because it already has negative power cards built into it with the Valentina, the Hood, then just the Sentry. They just have a lot of like, hey, we want you to throw some of these negative power over to your opponent's side, and it just meshes well together. I think the thing that probably most people who struggle with the Thunderbolts, what they lack is knowing when to do the Titania Goblin and fully clog a lane. You're trying to be a little bit aggressive with that because you have the Annihilus as a kind of safety valve if you've missed with your Goblin. And so taking a lot more risks on that Titania Goblin can help you secure more lanes early. And then if once you get a clogged lane, winning with Sentry, Taskmaster in a single lane wins you most of your games because it's just a massive power spike in that one location. And so you can just kind of cheat one lane and then win the other with that massive power spike.
And I think the thing that gets me about this deck the most is it is a deck that to me feels like it's desperately crying out for like one guy that's actually large. And so you're mentioning like the
Mhm.
Sentry, Taskmaster, same lane stuff, right? Like in a real clog deck, we don't have to do that because we have like a cannonball or whatever. But because this
Yeah.
deck is so limited in terms of scope and what it can get access to, it does feel like it's missing real verticality a lot of the time.
Yeah, I've seen this list swapping out Red Guardian for either a Man Thing or a Red Hulk to try and go more vertical. I just find that the combination of Winter Soldier, Sentry, Taskmaster, like that 6 energy that you're spending on a Red Hulk, you can get more or equal to amount of power with just those 2 cards. And so I think you can get a lot more play with this, but this does tend to feel harder to play when you don't have that big I win this lane kind of guy with like a Red Hulk. And so if you do end up struggling with this, Red Guardian is your flex slot, and trade them out for cards that just generate a lot of stats like Man-Thing or Red Hulk.
Next up, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is basically, there used to be a deck I affectionately referred to as the Season Passler. It seems like you've revived the Season Passler here with Venus, Jeff, and Spider-Man Brand New Day, all here to just get as many points of power as they possibly can and then move around a bunch. I get the basic idea here is just there's a Guardians location on the board. I'm going to use it as many times as I possibly can. Is there anything going on beyond that? Or are we just like, no, we're going full stats. That's all this deck is. We're just doing numbers.
Yeah, it's pretty much what it is. It's just all stats. You do have some play with the Gamora, and so like you do want to kind of save that one for later in the game. But the Superior Spider-Man's really strong. This deck's idea originated from Smiles. He runs a Bishop instead of a Starhawk, and one other card I can't remember in place of the Spider-Man Brand New Day. I ended up swapping them out because they just felt too slow, and I opted in for some more cheaper packages with like a Spider-Man Brand New Day and a Starhawk. The Star-Lord ends up buffing the majority of all the cards that you've played +2 because of the Venus. And so you can just get a lot of stats continually going with this deck, and it's a lot easier to play than the original Guardians bounce deck that was the best deck of Guardians for the longest time.
To what degree would you consider it better, though? Like, are you saying they're equivalent and this one's easier to play, or are you saying this one's better and easier to play?
I'd probably say they're equivalent. Maybe this one is slightly worse than the bounce deck, but the bounce deck is much more draw dependent on how much stats you can get out, because you are needing that beast, you are needing that toxin to kind of bit those cards back into your hand. And so like this deck can just put out a tremendous amount of stats without really thinking too hard on every single play line, which I think is just as valuable as, playing a bounce deck and hitting your top lines with it, because you don't have to sit there and be like, oh, I have to crunch every single number on every single lane before you click end turn.
The newly revamped Spider-Verse with a change to Anti-Venom that really seemed to put that card much more in line with what the deck actually needs, which is power, and much less in line with what the deck definitely does not need, which is energy. New Anti-Venom is adding power to the top card of your deck instead of making it free, which is way better because this deck already had way more energy than it had anything to do, than it knew what to do with. That also means that instead of a man-spider combo deck, it's a much more mid-rangey thing here. How much of that is due to Anti-Venom is really helpful in doing this and not necessarily as helpful the other way? And how much of that is due to the metagame just doesn't seem to have a lot of super over-the-top combo stuff that doesn't involve the X-Men right now?
Yeah, I think Anti-Venom change was super significant. He feels so good to play. When you have a Silk and an Anti-Venom, you can get, because he counts for every single move. So Silk moves 4 times in that turn. The Anti-Venom is giving a +4 to your top of your deck.
Take
And so you
notes,
can
Mary Jane. What? Did someone say something?
Yeah.
Did someone say? I didn't hear anybody. No, not.
Must have been the wind.
Yep.
But the Anti-Venom just ends up putting a ton of stats on the top of the deck, and you have flexible move cards. Spider-Man Brand New Day being amazing inclusion here because he does have the move twice, and he's a Spider-Verse character. So you're getting extra energy and extra points. He's given a point on the board, Anti-Venom's getting a point on the deck. You're getting +2 energy. Like, you're just getting a lot of value out of just that one card that I ended up swapping out Craven and Sims was the other most popular card in like the mid-rangey style decks. I swapped out those 2 cards for a Web Cosmo just because we were doing so much stats now because of the Anti-Venom change. I wanted to have flexibility with tech. And so now the Cosmo can come in. I can stop most of the X-Men gamers by moving over a Cosmo into their Wong lane and then just shutting them out from the rest of the game.
Yeah. this is this is going to sound like an exaggeration. This is the best Spider-Man Brand New Day deck in the game. Like, Spider-Man Brand New Day feels custom made, not for any real deck, but for Spider-Verse in Team Clash. He is the most unbelievable card they have ever made for this specific deck in this specific game mode. And I guess it makes sense, but it's like, wow, if you judge things by that standard, this is the best Spider card they've ever made. The guy's incredible.
Yeah, he works so well in this deck and just flows so perfectly.
Last up, and I'm kind of afraid least, is the Brotherhood of Mutants. You've put together a very Horseman-centric version here. Can you walk me through why? Like, I get some of this stuff, but the rest of it is just like, are we just super constrained by our card pool being mid? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, there's two routes you can go with the Brotherhood. One of them is the obvious, I'm going to play Maverick and just hope my buffs land on that. And I've opted more for let me just get a ton more stats across the board. The Squirrel Girl is honestly the main facilitator of this deck, and she's not even a Brotherhood because she can allow you to get that +1 scaling so much quicker. And then the rest of the cards, most of them actually do have good play, like the Wolverine and the Ensaba Noir work perfectly together with the Squirrel Girl. The only card that is obviously subject here is the Juggernaut, and it does offer a tremendous stat push, but I mostly added it because I wanted to have fun having an all-objective deck. If you were to make this a little better, you would probably swap out Juggernaut for something like a Maverick, just because it does transfer the buffs so well. But overall, the Brotherhood of Mutants last Team Clash was like the second best deck. And with the removal of Ascani Mom and Gambit Horseman of Death, this deck just feels like it's lacking something. And it's probably stats, it's probably interaction.
Those are like the only two things.
It's missing everything.
I can't believe my burger is missing cheese and beef. That's crazy. Like, well, what is it then?
But it's just so, it feels so meh when you're playing it. And I want it to be a lot better. I'm going to keep experimenting, obviously, but this was one of the ones that I had a lot of success with, especially last Team Clash and now into this Team Clash. But I still feel like there's still something that is missing here, and I'm going to find it.
Sure. Can you just real quick, because people are going to ask about this, stack rank the teams? Who's the strongest one? Who, like, let's say, stack rank these decks and then stack rank the teams, if there's a difference.
I don't know if there's a massive difference.
And let's say just stack rank the teams.
Okay, so number one, which upsets what everyone probably thinks is number one, Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse is number one now. X-Men's number two.
X-Men, of course, being the one that you would expect to be number one, or you expect people to think
X-Men being... Yes, Spider-Man just has so much play into it now. It's a toss-up between Guardians or Avengers for number three. I think I'm going to give it to Guardians. It just has a lot of stats that you can just put out across the whole board. Then I would do Avengers, and then Thunderbolts, and then lastly, Brotherhood of Mutants.
How big of a gap do you think there is between tiers here, where it's like the top tier gap, the next three gap, or is it 2, 2, 2?
I think it's top two, top three, and then Brotherhood of Mutants all the way down.
I was afraid of that. I feel bad for Magneto, but this is tremendous content. Thank you so much, Roram, for sharing your expertise with us. I really appreciate you being my LTGM crash test dummy. Everyone in the comments, make sure you check out the description so you can find where Roram is streaming, because he does stream, and help me try to bully him into doing more actual content like this. As always, I've been KMBest. You've been phenomenal. I will see you in the next one, and I'm going to throw it to Roram without telling him that I'm going to throw it to him, so I'm vamping a little bit right now so he can think about what to say. You got anything to say on the way out?
I'll see you in the next one.